Today we're going to be refinishing this dresser. So we're going to be refinishing this dresser. Actually, what we're going to be doing to refinish it is we're going to use a furniture paint. So we've done this one time before. The results turned out pretty well. This time we're going to use a little bit different paint. This paint is specifically designed for furniture. And also we're going to do a little bit of surface prep because the top of this is pretty worn down. The other reason why we're doing this is because this is a dresser that's in our boys' room, and this is what they use on a day-to-day basis for their clothes. So we just wanted to redo their room, kind of dress up the whole place, and one of the easiest ways we could think of in terms of getting some color into the space was to actually just paint the furniture. So hopefully the results turn out well.
Showing we have nail polish and deep scratches from the mirror that used to be on there.
The first step, what we've done is we've moved this cabinet into an unfinished area of the house. We could move it outside and work on painting and sanding this as well, but it's kind of cold. So thankfully we actually have an area in our house where we can do this, just to kind of keep the dust down and the smells down and all that in the main part of the home. So next, after we moved it, well first, I guess before we moved it, we took all the drawers out to make it easy to move. We moved it, obviously, and then what we're going to do now is we're going to sand the top down. And as you can see here, like, this is a really big scratch that occurred a long time ago. So what we're going to do is we're going to just take some really coarse sandpaper. We're going to sand down this whole top, and then we're going to sand it down we're going to sand down this whole top with some coarse sandpaper. Then we're going to smooth it down with some fine sandpaper. We're going to dust it off, and then we're going to go ahead and paint it. So this is going to be the first step in the process. All right, so what we've done is we've gone over the whole top a couple times to get the varnish off of the top itself. And then what I've done is I've come back to where that scratch is, and instead of leaving the sander flat, I've kind of tilted it at an angle a bit to kind of work through the surface. Now, you have to be careful when you do that, because if you do it, you could actually dig way into the surface of that you're refinishing. But if you're careful, you can, and the scratch isn't too deep, then what will happen is you'll cut through everything very quickly, and you can smooth it out to where you can't really tell that this is any different. The other trick is to when you take a scratch out like this, and kind of the way that I've done this here, is to make sure the sides where you're going in, you're not just making a narrow channel, because you're just making a scratch bigger then, or you're making a worse problem. You just need to make sure it's kind of evened out, what they call feathering out with the sandpaper, and then that'll take the surface and make it to where it's a very smooth transition, and you won't be able to tell that, one, the scratch won't be there anymore, and you won't be able to see where, or even feel where the sandpaper is kind of dug a little bit deeper into the wood. Here's a scratch that's a little bit indented, so I'm going to do that same technique here just to kind of show you what it looks like. So all I did was tilt this down just a little bit, just to kind of dig the sandpaper into the area where I wanted it addressed. And if you run your hand over this, since I kind of, after I did that, I kind of went around it to kind of feather this out here, you can't even feel it. Now that we've gotten all the big scratches out of this top, you can see here it just kind of took an approach of, you know, addressing each one of the really bad spots. What I did was I wiped it down, got all the loose particles, all the loose varnish and dust off of this, and made sure that there wasn't anything else here that was really bad. There's some pits in this top, and there's some other minor imperfections that you really aren't going to be able to get out, but these scratches they look pretty bad, and so we want to make sure we address that first before we painted it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go ahead and clean this off again, and then we're going to go over it with some finer grit sandpaper and just make sure it's a really nice smooth finish before we paint the top of this. The other thing to keep in mind too is the paint that we bought, it says that you don't have to sand the whole surface down in order to paint the furniture. But one caveat to that is it says that if the surface is glossy, you need to make the surface dull, which means sanding it. So what we're going to do is, on this piece of furniture, there's a lot of little crevices and little nooks here that we could go through with like some hand sandpaper and kind of dull down. We might do that on some of these areas, but for the most part, there's a lot of little nooks and crannies on this, and we're not really going to be worried about it too much. So what we're going to do is, on any areas that are really flat, like on the sides here, you can see there's some flat areas. We're just going to go over it really quickly with some sandpaper again, just to kind of dull the finish down, just to make sure the paint adheres to the cabinet as well as it can. It's also important to know that on a piece of furniture like this dresser here, the top might be coated in a little bit thicker material like a polyurethane, just to help keep the surface protected a little bit better. On this cabinet, for example, the surface was a little bit hard to get through. We had to go over it a few times with the hand sander, but the sides, when you actually go through and sand the sides down, you can see here it got down to the bare wood pretty easily and pretty quickly. So just be aware of that, be careful, take your time. Also, you know, if it's an old piece of furniture that you're refinishing, don't worry about making mistakes. Sometimes it happens. If you're going to paint it and it's going to be like a piece of furniture for your kids, it's okay. It's really, this is just a great opportunity to take some furniture that was old, make it look new again, and repurpose it. Here's the paint we're going to use. This is furniture paint from Valspar. Take a look at that right there. That's what we're going to be using right now. And I don't know if you can see that, but that's color. I'm sure you'll be able to see that once we start painting. So, like I said, this is supposed to go on furniture without having to strip it down completely. We did go ahead and sand off a lot of the areas where you're just going to get wear and tear, where it's glossy. The paint does say to kind of, you know, get rid of the glossy surface. So we'll see how this holds up over time, and looking forward to seeing how it turns out. Here's the cabinet after the first coat of paint. You got to be careful on some of the more detailed work. You'll tend to get runs, so you need to make sure you take care of those runs as they occur, because you don't want it to dry that way. You can see here it's a little bit spotty, but that's okay because this is just the first coat of paint. Also, if you look at the top here, you can see where I had sanded this down to get rid of the scratches. You can see it's like it's spotty, really is what it is right now. But that's because the paint is absorbing into the wood differently than this part here, to where it's already stained and it can't absorb. So this will all even out once we do another coat of paint. But right now, what we need to do is let this dry, and then once it's dry, we'll come back, we'll do the second coat, and we'll see how it looks. To complete the look, we're also going to be upgrading the hardware from this original drawer pull style to this new cup style drawer pull, which is a lot more modern. And included in the new drawer pull is some screws that are adjustable. Really, all that is these cabinet screws here. You can see these areas where there aren't threads. You can take some pliers, and what I like to use also is a hacksaw to kind of score these areas and then break off the length of the screw that you don't need. These are really nice because no matter what the length is that you need for your cabinet, whether it's the shorter area or the full length, these can be customized to fit whatever project you're working on. The other thing to know here, you might want to check the holes that are used in the cabinet or in the furniture that you're replacing the door handle pulls on. These holes are a lot bigger than the screws that are used. And just to make sure that they don't pull through, we ended up purchasing some washers for the screws, so that way it gives a little bit more surface area to attach to, and you don't have to worry about it pulling through the wood. Okay, so here's the finished product. This is the refinished cabinet, or actually dresser, that we painted with the Valspar Furniture Paint. I think it turned out really well. Like we showed in the video, we also replaced the hardware, and that turned out really well as well. So hopefully you all like this project. This is also part of a larger room reveal that we did for our boys. So if you'd like to see that video, we'll have a link in the description below to that. We'll also have links in the description to the type of paint that we use, the color, tools, all that good stuff. So if you're interested in that, that'll be in the description as well. And we'd finally like to say thank you for watching this video. Hopefully you found it helpful and informative. If you haven't subscribed to our channel already, please hit that subscribe button. And be sure to like this video as well. All right, thanks for watching this video, and we will see you on the next one.